everybody, Bill 1911 here. Today we're going to start on our second video on the rifles of World War II used by the Allied forces. This is an M-1 Garand, and this will be the subject of our video today. I got to ask you to be patient with me because this thing is extremely long, which means it's going to be very, very difficult to keep it in frame. I will do my best, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is our M-1 Garand. This particular one, I think, came out of Korea and was imported back into the United States. I believe when it came, it was just the receiver. When I bought it, it was just the receiver. There were no parts in this gun at all, only a receiver. From there, I bought the barrel, I bought all the parts, I bought the operating rod, the op rod spring, the trigger group, all the parts that I needed, and I bought a stock, all the furniture, and I assembled this from parts. And if you look closely, you'll see that the phosphatizing finish on this end of the receiver is a slightly different color from about this point forward, okay? Meaning this part of this receiver was refinished. You can see right under here there are two ideograms that appear to be Korean lettering, okay? I'm assuming that this came from South Korea because of that. You can just barely see it. Even if I held it up to the camera, you'd have a hard time seeing it, but there are two characters underneath here. You can also see some scratching underneath the finish where they apparently took a Dremel tool and dremeled those characters off. And from there we have Intract, Knoxville, Tennessee. That's the people who imported the receiver. Okay, so this thing is definitely a mongrel. It was assembled from parts, totally from parts. You can see that the stock has several different colors to it, okay? This main body of the stock is very dark. It's black. Slight brown color to it, but it's very dark. The front handguard here, this is a different color, and even the wood is a different texture from the top handguard here. So it's definitely something that was put together, like I said. I know it was because I put it together. But when you're looking at one of these rifles, to say that the gun is an all original is very likely not true. The reason why is because these rifles were manufactured for World War II. They were sent overseas. When they came back into the country, they went through the arsenal and were refitted. New op rod springs, new parts here and there. All of that was redone, okay? If there were any cracked stocks, anything like that, they got replaced. Then they were sent over to Korea, and we had them during the Korean War. And when they came back into the country, same thing. The South Koreans kept an awful lot of these for their forces. For a while, the only way you could get one of these was one that was imported back into the United States from South Korea. This thing is a tremendous, tremendous battle rifle. It is very, very rugged. They really, really are exceptional rifles. They were touted as the gun that won the war. Well, I can say that they probably did come pretty close to that. The Germans were using a bolt-action rifle that is really, really similar to the bolt-action rifle that we used before the M-1 Garand came in. Okay, it's just, this thing it's really a piece of history. All of these things are. But if you're looking to buy one, those are some things you can look for. You can look for differences in the color and texture of the stock. You'll find stuff like that. There are serial numbers that you can find. You're going to find proof marks on them. You're going to find all kinds of things. And in order to really become conversant in these guns, you'll need to do some reading and some research and find out exactly what you're looking at and what you're looking for. So there is a little addition that I put onto this thing back here on the back of the stock. Now, I made this. It's made out of duck cloth, which is basically canvas. And I built this because it's a cheek pad, okay? This gun bucks a good bit. It's 30-06 and it's got a lot of punch to it. Now, it's very heavy, so that tames some of that punch. It's semi-automatic, so that tames a little bit more of the punch. But I found that when I rest my cheekbone down here on the stock, one, it bangs me pretty good, okay? And two, my eye did not line up real well with the rear sight. So that's just, for me, this worked out really well. So if you have an M1 Garand and you feel like it doesn't line up real well, you can make one of these, but they are still available. As far as I know, Brownells carries them, and also Midway USA carries them that are made out of leather, okay? And they're much higher quality than what I have on mine. This was kind of a stopgap so I could take the gun out and shoot it and have fun with it. Personally, when I buy a gun, I'm not really buying it as much for its trade-in value or anything else like that as I am because I just enjoy the heck out of shooting them. So that's what this one is for me. It's the joy of shooting the M1 Garand. So with that, we're going to get started on taking this big guy apart, okay? So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back. To take this thing apart, the first thing we have to do is take the trigger group out of the gun. Now, I'm going to try and hold this up so that you can see what I'm talking about. Again, this thing is a beast. It's heavy, so if you look, there's kind of a little cutout area right back here in the stock, okay, to allow the back of this trigger guard to move backward, okay? Now, there's a hook that's on the bottom of this that hooks underneath this plate that the trigger comes through. So in order to take it apart, we have to push this backward and lift it up, okay? And that will allow this to scissor right out of the gun and pull the entire trigger group right out of the bottom of the stock, okay? So from there, the stock slips right off the bottom of the gun, okay? Now I'm going to do that again, but show you the other end of it. Okay, when it scissors out, this end of the stock, the front end, is just simply set underneath, okay, this piece of furniture that runs around here, okay, and it hooks into that position, okay, right around the operating rod. Now, we're going to move this stock out of the way, and this whole piece all along here is the operating rod, okay? This whole thing. Now, way up in here is where the tube for the gas piston comes through, okay? And the gas piston comes back, okay? Right up, I had that completely out of frame, my apologies. Okay, right up here in the front, there's a hole drilled in the barrel and a passage that allows gas to come through and hit the back of the gas piston. Now that gas piston then comes through and hits that operating rod and pushes the entire operating rod backward, okay? So let me see if I can get it in a position where you can at least see it on one of the two cameras. Okay, that's the op rod right there, okay? So now there is one thing that I wanted to touch base on that's really important on M1 Garands. They actually had a name for this back in training camp for these guns. It's called M1 Garand Thumb, okay? Now, when you're loading one of these guns, this thing can come forward so hard it can quite literally break your thumb. That bolt, when it comes forward, I mean it comes forward with a vengeance. So, when you load this thing, okay, we're going to show you this, okay? This part right here is called the follower, okay? Now, there's a metal clip, which I should probably have one here to show you. So I'm going to be right back, and I'm going to bring that clip back so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, this is the clip for the M-1 Garand. Now, these are live rounds, so before I go any further, I am going to remove them from the room, okay? But I did want you to see how they stacked into this clip, okay? It holds 8 rounds, all right? And they stack into this clip like that. Now, when they loaded these clips, okay, pull this out of here, you just kind of drop the rounds in, okay, and you just kind of press the next one into place, and then press the last one into place, and that's how you loaded this clip. And then the clip gets pushed down into the gun, which I will show you in a moment. But for right now, we're going to get these live rounds out of here. Okay, so we're back. We now have our empty clip. There's some neat, cool history about these clips, which I'll share with you in a moment. But what I wanted to show you is that right here on the back of this clip, okay, you'll see right here, it's got these two kind of like bulbous ridges and this little catch. Now, it's universal from one side to the next, okay? This catch, the whole clip gets pushed down into the receiver through this slot right here, okay? You can see that little slot there, and the corresponding one on the other side of the receiver, okay? So that clip pushes straight down into the receiver. Now, when that happens, when you push the clip down in there, you're pushing this follower down with the bullets, okay? Let me get that a little better in frame for you. Okay, you push this follower down with the bullets. So the minute you do that, what happens is it releases that bolt to come forward. So if you don't get your thumb up and out of the way before that thing closes, it can break your thumb. So you want to be really careful when you're loading these things. And I'm going to show you a little technique that works very, very well for this. In order to do it, I'm going to slip the stock back into place, okay, and show you how to do this. When you load the gun, what you're going to do is you're going to take the butt of the gun, okay, and you're going to push it back right into the crease of your leg, between your leg and your body. Excuse me. You're going to roll it onto its right side like that. You're going to take the heel of your hand and hook that charging lever with your hand and hold the gun, hold it back. So this way you can use 4 fingers to press that bolt down, or that follower down, and the whole thing goes down into the gun that way. And you're still holding that charging arm back so you don't catch a handful of bolt when it slams forward, okay? Because believe me, it's not a lot of fun if that thing closes on your hand. As you can see, that sucker closes hard, okay? So if your thumb is in the way, it is going to get destroyed. So please be careful when you're loading one of these things, because they do bite. And before you ask the question, yes, I have had my thumb busted up by this very gun. Yes, it will bite, so you got to be careful. All right, now there are a number of different parts in this gun that are kind of interlocking, that interweave together. The op rod spring, the operating rod spring, is very long. It starts here, it goes all the way up inside the operating rod. It's very long, and it's a very powerful spring. Okay, the follower, okay, that's this piece right here, okay. Now that is under pressure of that spring. As you can see, when I pull up and down on it, that spring is also pushing that follower back up into the receiver to operate okay. So it operates not only the charging lever and bolt, it also operates the follower that feeds the ammunition up into the gun, okay? So that one spring pretty much runs everything, so it's an important spring. That's why they replaced them. They when they came back into the country, that's why the arsenals replaced those springs so often. They kind of needed it. All right, so from here, I got to push the follower down. Okay, now, what I did was accidentally press that, which I did not intend to do. Okay, now, we're going to take this front end apart. How do we take that front end apart? It's pretty darn easy. If you look, there's a big, almost looks like a Phillips screw right there on the bottom. You can take your little screwdriver and slip it in there and rotate that, okay? And once you get it rotated, or get it rotating, okay, you can kind of just sort of unscrew it from the end of the gun, okay? And that's going to come out. Alright, so once we've unscrewed this plug that comes out of the end of here, okay, this end piece simply unscrews off the end of the barrel, okay? Comes right off. Now, once we get this off, you'll see that the end of the barrel is threaded, okay? Right here. So, from there, we have to slide this bottom piece off the end. Now, if you look on the bottom of the barrel, right here, you can see the hole, the gas hole. I know that sounded kind of rude. The gas hole, okay, for that op rod, all right, that bangs into it and shoves that op rod back. Now that op rod goes up inside here, okay, and this is where your gas piston gets operated, is through this piece right here, okay. All right, so to get the op rod out of the gun, we have to first remove this actuating rod that operates the follower that pushes the ammunition up in the magazine. In order to do that, it's a pretty simple process. We simply grab the rod and push it that way, okay? Now what that's going to do is eventually it's going to unhook from the follower and allow us to take out that actuating rod and the operating rod spring. Now, the operating rod spring has grease on it, so when you take this out of the gun, be prepared to make a mess, all right? Now, it does not have oil on it, it has grease on it, and there is a good reason, okay? Grease is more resilient. This is inside of a tube, so it's constantly rubbing on that op rod tube all the time. So what we're going to try to do is set this over here in such a way that we don't end up with a mess, okay? So we're going to kind of roll it up in the rag, all right, like this, okay, to keep it from flying all over the room, all right? And I'm going to set it down on its face, and that way it'll keep it sheathed in that, all right? So that's in the rag. Now, I don't know if you remember the M-1 Carbine that we did. That was the last video, but it has a similar situation. Back here on the back of the, let me get my pointer, on the back of the receiver, there's a cutout right here. Now this cutout is so that we can pull the operating rod back and lift it aside, okay? From there, the whole operating rod just comes right out of the gun. Very easy on this one. It's easier to get this one out than it is the M1 Carbine. So once your operating rod is out, okay, next thing you can do is pull the bolt out, which it just kind of slides forward and comes out just like the M1 Carbine did. It has to just slide out, okay? So the follower, okay, that runs in all these tracks, okay, all of this has to be oiled, okay? So you're going to want to do that. You can take it out of the gun. There's one pin, okay, to take it out, and that's right here, okay. Now you can push it out, okay, extract the pin, all right, and the entire follower assembly is then going to come out of the gun, all right. Everything comes out, okay? So you can take that out, and that'll make it a little easier to clean and do all of what you have to do. That's just how it goes, okay? And that's the actual follower itself, okay? Now the follower, I wanted to show you this. The follower itself has moving parts, so you're going to want to be sure that you lubricate those moving parts, okay? So it's not just a hunk of solid iron in there. It is actually two parts that work together, okay? So that's your follower. All right, so from here we're going to clean the gun the way we clean any other gun. We're just going to take the cleaning rod and the jag and wet down the barrel, and we're going to do all of that. Now, this gun has a similar situation to the M-1 Carbine in that you can't get the cleaning rod in from the breech to clean the chamber very well. So if you remember, I showed you a trick on the last video, on the M1 Carbine video, on how you can kind of make your patch kind of wad up in a ball. Now normally I use almost exclusively a jag to clean guns, almost exclusively. Different people like different things, but on these guns where you can't get into the chamber from the breech end, I use a ferrule on these. Now the ferrule is very handy for this type of situation because I'm going to try and show you this out of the gun so you can see what happens. I'm going to use a short rod. Okay, so what's going to happen, okay, is we're going to fold our patch diagonally and stick it through our ferrule, okay, like so. Now what's going to happen is that this is going to go through the barrel, okay, I pushed too far, sorry, through the barrel, but I'm not going to take it all the way through. I'm going to push it most of the way through, and then when I pull it backwards, you notice how it's starting to ball up. Well, it makes it thicker so that it goes into that chamber, and from there I can spin it and clean the inside of the chamber. So that's what we're going to do on the inside of that barrel to clean that chamber out. Okay, I got something I wanted to show you. I've talked about this in the past, but I just accidentally did something that damaged my brush. Okay, this cone is designed to go into the front of the barrel and center the rod so that the cleaning rod doesn't drag across the rifling at the crown of the barrel. Okay, so what happened was, as I was extracting the brush, that little cone pushed down onto this end of the brush, and I hope you can see it, but it kinked these bristles on the end and damaged them. And if you'll notice back here on the back, this brush is now a little smaller in diameter than the rest of the brush. Okay, so that means it's not going to put as much pressure on the walls of the barrel as we clean it. So you can have that same problem happen to your brush if you push it down the barrel part way and then reverse directions. It'll kink those bristles and you'll end up with a brush that does not work as well. So I just happened to do that by accident, so I wanted to show you that you can damage the brush. It's not the end of the world, okay? It's a brush. You know, you can buy a new one. But if you take care of your brush, you'll get a lot more mileage out of it. It'll last a lot longer. Sorry about that. My battery just died on one of my cameras. So, now that we fixed that, there is something I wanted to bring your attention to, and that is this gas port, okay? You are going to want to make sure that you keep that gas port clean, okay? If you don't, the gun isn't going to cycle properly. So if it starts to giving you a lot of trouble, look here to see if this tube is partially plugged. It's just a hole that drills into the barrel. It's not hard to clean, but don't put anything like a drill bit in it. use a pipe cleaner, something like that, something that's soft that isn't going to potentially tear up the rifling in the end of the barrel here. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of cleaning now, get everything all spiffied up and clean for you, and I'm going to do most of that off camera, and then we're going to reassemble the gun. That way it'll keep the video a little bit shorter. Okay, now there are some little details that I wanted to go over with you on cleaning the M-1 Garand. Little things that I don't know whether you'll find it in the manual or not, but it's just kind of a fact of these things. Right around the end of the barrel, around that gas port, in this threaded area where we unscrewed this end cap, okay, it gets really dirty in there, okay, and it gets that way because the gas kind of pushes around and into these threads. So we're going to want to make sure that we take a brush to this area of the gun, okay, and clean it up, because otherwise you have a lot of trouble with assembly and disassembly. Alright, so we get all this defunkified, if you will, for lack of a better term. And after we've got all that carbon and burnt powder residue and all the rest out of here, everything's going to go back together a lot easier. Alright, so now we use a bronze brush on this because bronze doesn't damage the steel. Alright, it's not going to cause problems with those threads. Alright, sometimes that stuff gets a little bit stubborn in there, so you kind of got to go at it for a while. If it really gives you too hard a time, put some cleaning solvent on it and it will loosen it right up and it'll come right out. So now the other end of this threaded part, it has the same problem. It has stuff in it too. So it's very difficult to get our brush down into there to get to it. So what we can do is we can take an old cleaning brush, one that we've damaged or one that we don't have a lot of problem or a lot of confidence in, and we can just kind of roll it around in here and scrape the inside of this clean and get those threads cleared out. Alright, so it doesn't take a lot, but it's just a little detail that's going to help everything to stay cleaner and function better. Alright, so from there, yeah, it's probably time to start putting this puppy back together. Now there is one part that I did not remove, okay, and that is the upper hand guard. Now the upper hand guard, it's not a big deal to take it off. It has this spring right here, okay, that is a catch, okay, and that spring fits into this notch in the barrel on both sides and just holds it in place. So if you have to take it off, you can. I don't really honestly see a need to take it off. I mean, under most circumstances, if you feel strongly about it, take it off just to make sure that there's no rust forming on the outside of the barrel underneath the handguard. That's not a big problem to do that. So if you feel like you want to, feel free. I mean, it's not gonna hurt anything to do it. Are you kidding me? Well, you're not going to believe this, but my battery just died again on the other camera. So I'm not sure why, but something's going on with that camera. I'm going to have to find out what it is. Alright, so alright, reassembly. Let's put this puppy back together. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do it, a couple of approaches you can make. I like to put on this end piece later on because for me it's easier to get the op rod in and out if I don't have this on the end. It just allows the op rod a little bit of extra wiggle room, okay, so that I don't bend it. A bent op rod is a problem. If you bend this op rod, you're going to have to replace it, and they can be bent. It's not like you can't bend them, because you can. All right, so Clean that up a little bit. All right. So let's start putting everything back together. Remember, we have to put our follower back in the gun. Okay, now there's a slot right here that this follower goes into. But what you got to remember is that the blade that's on this follower has to be facing the top of the gun. So when you put it in, you're working from the bottom side, so you think you're putting it in upside down, but you're not. Put it in like that. Now we got to put the op rod spring and the follower strut into place. All right, so first we get our op rod spring out and we slide it up into that tube. All right. Now, and I think I put it in backwards. All right, upper. All right. Get in there, you. Now, this goes into here, okay, and it slides all the way up in to here, all right, and from there it hooks on the follower right down around here. Okay, once it's hooked in, okay, then everything is back together and everything is operating the way it should be. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and put the front end of the gun back together. So we put the front handguard in first, okay, and then we put the front sight and gas port back into the gun the way it came out, okay. Now it's indexed so it only slides in a certain way. It's because of these two grooves, you can't screw that part up, all right. Well, I can, but you shouldn't. All right, so from here, we're going to screw this cap back into place. Now, if you have one of these M-1 Garands, okay, and you put it back together and this handguard, the front handguard, doesn't have a little bit of movement to it, then you've got something wrong. It's not, this is too tight. So from here, we put this cap back in and we screw it into place. And that's going to put the gun back together with the exception of the buttstock. Now if you happen to have a big cross-point screwdriver, you can use that and it'll do a better job than what I'm doing here. But I wanted to show you this method to show you that it can be done even if you don't have that huge screwdriver. All right, so you want this snug. You don't want to break it off, just snug, okay? All right, so from there, we're going to put the buttstock back in place. All right, front of it hooks in underneath, okay? And the back of it just slides down over, okay? All right, from there, we're going to put the trigger group back into place, all right? Now, to get this back in, you're going to have to keep this pulled up, okay, all right, which is kind of a pain in the backside because it's pretty springy, all right. So a way to fix that problem is to cock it, okay, and that's going to take all that springiness out of it so that you don't have to fight it so hard, all right. So from here, you're going to notice that there are some little pins here. Those pins have to hook in right underneath here, okay? So when you put this in, you drop it in like this, okay? You make sure that it's pressed all the way down, and then you rock that trigger group back, and it locks in place. And that has got your gun completely reassembled, ready to go. Okay? So remember, this thing bites, so be careful, okay? There you are, the M-1 Garand. It's quite a gun, and it is a long fellow. All right. So, hey everybody, I just wanted to get back with you on something that I told you on the last video, the M-1 Carbine video that I was going to show you. This is a product called a bore snake, all right? And this makes cleaning guns like the M-1 Garand and the M-1 Carbine very simple. Okay, so this is our Garand, all right? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pull the bolt back and lock it open, okay? So from here, we can turn the gun muzzle down, okay? Now, I want to caution you, don't set your gun on its muzzle. It's hard on the crown of the barrel and it can potentially damage the rifling at the end of the barrel. So you want to be careful. You don't want to bang it on the ground, anything like that. So the way this bore snake works is you take this little weight on the end of it and you simply feed it through the barrel and let it come out through the muzzle, okay? As you can see. Now, this is not a lot different from the cleaning kit that actually came with the gun back in the day. It was a weight and a string like this, but it had the ferrule tip on it like this, like on the end of this cleaning rod. That's what the tip of it looked like. So you could just put cleaning patches on it and draw it through. Well, with this, you simply grab your spore snake and you just pull it right through the barrel like that. And it cleans your barrel out, okay? And it does a marvelous job. It has a brush on it, okay, that's built into it, and it has this entire length of material that scrapes all the stuff out of the barrel. So that's your bore snake, and it works really, really easy for cleaning guns like the M-1 Carbine and the M-1 Garand. So it's something that I highly, highly recommend for one of these. Okay, so the next gun on our hit parade here is the 1903 A3 Springfield, okay, or commonly known as the 03 A3. Now this is a bolt-action rifle. It's very similar to the design of the 98 Mauser. In fact, I would say it's a copy. This thing has some very heavy bolt lugs on it that are heavier than what you see on the Mauser. It's a tremendously strong action and it works really, really well. But it has a 5-round integral box magazine, so you've only got 5 shots out of this thing before you have to reload it. And it's a bolt action, so it's going to be a lot slower than going bang, 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 bang with that M1 Garand. So it's a terrific rifle. I mean, it's hard to beat this thing. But it is a bolt-action rifle, and this was what was our line rifle, heavy line rifle, up until the M1 Garand saw service in World War II. Now, so this is our 03 A3 Springfield. I'm Bill 1911. We'll see you next time.